Hi, everybody. Dave Sims along with Boog Sciambi. This is Announcers On, our 13th episode, and we are pleased to welcome in Melanie Newman, newest member of the Mass and Baltimore Orioles broadcast team. Melanie, good to have you with us. Welcome. How's everything going?
Thank you. It's been about as good as you can ask for having absolutely no normalcy at this point in life, but just digging my heads into some Orioles history books and trying to keep as engaged with fans as we can right now while we wait.
Boog, Melanie's got an interesting history. Let's investigate that and then get up to speed here on what's going on with the O's.
Yeah, Melanie, I guess the first thought in my head before we get into, sort of your path to the big leagues, I mean, you, as much as anyone is probably sitting there saying, are we going to have baseball? Because you're ready to get this thing going and get this chapter started, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a really weird situation to have been in the minors for the last, 5-6 seasons and college ball and everything else that came before that. And then you finally get there, and it's almost like crossing the marathon finish line, and there's nothing there. And you're like, all right, now what do we do? So, it's different. I'm lucky, me, my family, everybody's healthy. And it's just a waiting game at this point.
Well, tell me a little bit about how you started and why baseball was the path that you went down, because you've experienced in A-ball, AA, and in doing play-by-play. But what was specific to baseball that drew you and how you started on that path?
Yeah, so growing up, I was not the athlete at all. The genetics fully went to my sister on that side, but I loved being around sports. And for us, that was a way that our family bonded. I mean, we had the Olympics here in '96 in Atlanta, and the Braves were right down the road, so we would go to games. Our dad was an SEC graduate, so we grew up, going to the heart of college football. And out of everything we did, for whatever reason, baseball connected more than most, as far as just my intellectual want to really latch on and understand all of the little ins and outs and the details that came along with it. And growing up in Atlanta, it's a hotbed for the sport. People play here year round. They have complexes all over the place. So most of my friends, that's what they did. And I was kind of like the little nerdy kid who couldn't figure out where she really fit in, but I liked being in the stands and being able to keep a book and learning all of that, and it just blossomed from that point forward.
Melanie, what was the moment or happening that said, not only do I like baseball, I want to be in baseball and I want to broadcast baseball? What was that moment? When was that moment, and what was it like?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I was an introvert, first of all, growing up, and that's all the way through high school. Like I did not speak well in front of others. I had maybe 2 friends, a really quiet kid, but I'm really grateful. Our head coach at the time, who's now retired, he took me under his wing, and taught me how to keep a book and really let me be a part of the team. We were videoing all of our hitters and pitchers for all of their scouting they had at the time, which was nothing compared to today. And by the time I got into college, I had an advisor who suggested I switch from print to broadcast journalism. And okay, I'll try it. Thought I wanted to be an anchor until my boss, Ricky Hazel, moved down to Florida to join another university and said, hey, I need a sideline reporter for the baseball tournament, and I want you to come do that. And I said, yeah, I don't think that's what I want to do. I'm not cut out for that. That's not my thing. And my dad challenged me. It was a hard 5 days. It's 5 games a day, first of all. So that's a monster in itself. But I learned at that point, this isn't just walking on camera and saying things. You have to be able to develop a rapport and a trust with these teams. And in situations like that, you're coming in the day before. They've never seen you. They don't know who you are. Why should you have the privilege of telling their story? And you have to prove that. So I fell in love with the live baseball broadcasting. That was in 2010. And from that point forward, when I joined the Mobile Bay Bears, who are now a defunct AA club, my partner, Justin Baker, who had known me for years, he said, no, you're going to do more than just pre and post game. You're going to do more than being the on-field person. I'm going to bring you in the booth because I know you and I know you can do this. And I'm grateful that that setting of coming into the booth for the first time with someone who I had known for so long was the way that it was. because it took off a little less pressure. You know, when you're with a friend, it's a conversation, it flows. It's not this nervous, oh, I have to impress these people I don't know, and I have to prove, you know, I'm a female and I know sports and rah, rah, rah. No, it's just, hey, let's put on a couple of headsets and let's talk about the game for a little bit. And I've had people who from that point forward have entrusted me with helping be a part of their next step.
And what about the stretch as far as learning to do play-by-play and how that came about and your experience, I guess, starting with Salem?
Yeah, so that was definitely different. And it's funny, we found some tapes from when I was 3 years old. For me being the introvert, and I thought I was going to be a teacher or a veterinarian. I never knew this was the path I would take. But I was running around our house giving play-by-play of our family members and making up little things along the way. Like my sister was running away from a gazelle at one point. That'll probably be the call that sticks out in my head the most. But, you know, from 2014 on, once I started having people entrusting me and opening my own mind that I could be in the booth despite the fact that I was a female, it was a challenge. And again, more credit to my dad for constantly quizzing me or saying, hey, you know, I listened tonight. You said this, that's great. You said this, that's not exactly it. You know, maybe twist it, tweak it. So he was able to really challenge me. You know, you have to, everybody hates listening back to their stuff, but you have to, if you want to get better, you know, you have to be able to pinpoint those moments. And all the credit to Geoff Arnold, who was the broadcaster for the Frederick Keys last year. And of course we got hired at the same time this year to Baltimore, which has been awesome. But of everybody, he really was able to sit down with me and pinpoint, you know, this is where you're disconnecting. This is how you fix it specifically. I've had plenty of people who have given me advice, and the list is just tremendous, and they've all made an impact. But Geoff himself physically took the time, I mean, every week, to go over my calls with me and to really kind of give me the credit and the ability to make huge improvements on my game this past year in Salem. And by the time we got to the playoffs, the calls from April to September were night and day.
That's really good foundational stuff. You know what I'm curious about? Obviously, the dearth of women doing play-by-play in college sports, pro sports. Who did you reach out to, or who did you maybe, you know, look into, somebody to emulate, to follow, to get a feel for what her experiences had been to get to the highest level in broadcasting?
Yeah. So the first female that really grabbed my attention as far as the integrity of the job, Sophia Minnaert with the Brewers, just because her ability to have a bilingual conversation with players, and you lose that barrier and that translation that just kind of gets botched when you have that third person. It shocked me, and it really made me step up and say, you know, that's the level that I want to be at, to be able to not only command this game on my own, but to really give it in its most raw format. And from there, I'm really blessed that I've had just a slew of male mentors. Bob Rathbun was the first who really took me under his wing. And, you know, he had an extensive time in Major League Baseball, and now he's been with the Atlanta Hawks for a long time. But he said, you know, I know that you're trying to market yourself to all these different sports, but I'm telling you, I've seen your stuff, and it's baseball, and you got to stick to baseball. And took the initiative from that point forward to walk that walk with me and say, you know, hey, kiddo, this is the reality of the situation, or this is how you can combat dealing with this. From there, Steve Berthiaume and Cindy Brunson, who were both with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and she's now with the Pac-12, they've stepped up. And if we're looking at women specifically in that play-by-play role, Jenny Kavnar with the Colorado Rockies has just been above and beyond, not just a source of light and, you know, a sense of I can do this without being, you know, over the top and frilly and everything sunshine and rainbows, because it's not. But being that realistic shoulder of, you know, I've got your back and you can do this. This is my call. And I think that's unique too, is as great as the male mentors are, when you can find a female mentor who's doing the exact same thing as you, that's where I can grow the most, because that's who I can relate to the most, and her empathetic approach to it and what's going on through her mindset during all that. It's really unique. And I mean, the list goes on from there. Tim Brando has been just as great of a mentor to me as well. And especially right now, he's that kind of little reminder of like, hey, I know we don't have it, but keep your head up, stay productive. So it takes a village.
Tell me a little bit about when you go through a minor league season and the progression and the relationships that form and how the players reacted to you, because that's got to be a real thing. That's just different for the players to see a woman being around all the time, but in a position that they're used to having filled. So you're the broadcaster, only it's a woman this time. So how did that relationship change as the season went on?
I will say every relationship with every team has only gotten better every single year. When I first started, I wasn't allowed on the bus. I wasn't allowed in the clubhouse. It was a very closed approach to me doing my job. And it was a little bit of a strain on the relationship with the players because it took away their ability to understand why I was there and what I ultimately wanted to do. Now, you fast forward to 2018 in Texas with the Frisco Rough Riders, and we did get to go on some road trips, but, there were a lot of responsibilities to juggle. But we had more freedom and we had a bigger staff. So my ability to pull off pieces on the side for players and develop the human interest side and let them know that's my biggest thing. We can talk about a guy hitting 300 all day long, but like if your grandma's in town and she hasn't gotten to see you play in 5 years, like that's where I want to live. And that's what I really want to bring to light for people. And it changed the game. I hate to say it at this point, closing in and making that age gap a little bigger with the minor league players, it got to the point where like I was the mom, I always had snacks in my bag and I could give relationship advice, and it was just a little bit of a different head on my shoulders than if I had been their age, the way that I was when I had started. And then this past year with Salem and being the lead, and that was the first time many of them had experienced that, and they're even younger now than the guys that I've ever worked with. So there was some distance at first. And the way that I compare it is it's kind of like when you put fish food in the top of the water, and they'll slowly come up and they might, they'll take a bite and then they go away really quickly. So a couple weeks in, we hang around the batting cages. I never missed batting practice. We'd always be at the Turtle. That was my time to get into the coaches' heads and ask what was going on. And a player would come up after he took some hacks and he'd be like, "So you're from Atlanta?" "Yeah." And then they kind of walk off. And then another one, "Oh, so you went to this college?" "Yeah." And then they kind of walk off. And I think when they realize, more or less, there is that line of respect, but I am one of the guys. I'm here for you. I'm on your side. I want to tell your story. I'm going to do it just as well as the males that you've experienced doing it in the past. It opened up from there. And by the end of the season, I'd go to war for any of those kids because they went above and beyond, not only to make me feel like a normal part of the team, but to respect my role with that team.
Melanie Newman, our guest here on Announcers On, episode 13. Dave Sims, Boog Sciambi with you. Melanie, walk us through the process of the Orioles. Did you reach out to them? Did they call you? How did that materialize for you?
So the Orioles thing was crazy. I went on my own out to winter meetings. I knew that in the least I was going to be back with Salem this year. And that was the first time ever that I'd had a minor league job that said, "Hey, you're here as long as you want. It's not a one and done type situation." But you also want to take that chance to grow and to see what opportunities are out there. So I was talking to a couple other teams and seeing what was in the mix. And really almost out of nowhere, I got a call. And they said, "Hey, we're with the Orioles. We just kind of want to talk. We want to see what's going on, what your philosophy towards broadcasting and the game of baseball in itself is." And I'm telling you, this all went down within maybe a week and a half because all of a sudden it was, "Hey, can you fly up here in 2 days?" "Well, it's the off season. I'm doing nothing. So sure, let's do it." And within a week of that, there was the opportunity to join. And I couldn't have ever thought about going anywhere else just because they were so set on loving the fact that I could multitask. I can be the one who does the sidelines one day. I can be in the booth for radio the next. If you want to do digital content, let's do it. I will eat and embarrass myself on camera. I don't care because it's about building those connections and the emotional reaction and attachment between fans and teams that we're the ones that are very lucky and privileged to have. So knowing that they were going to create this hybrid role that had never existed, and they were all about, there was not one moment of, "We like you, but change this." This is me and I fit in with the puzzle piece perfectly. And it was all systems go from there.
That's pretty cool. Do you remember where you were, what the kind of the feeling was when they extended the offer?
Oh yeah. You always picture it in your head of, where
Right.
you'll be and what you're doing. And I've learned over the years, I've had other interviews before, and obviously thus far they had been no's. So you start to temper that, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You want to be where your feet are. So I thought, the interview, I thought it was great, but I don't know. So we'll just breathe, we'll lay off. And I got the email that, they wanted to move forward with this and that this was a real thing. And it took me a minute. Yeah. You always picture in your head how it's going to be, but I was like, so is this an offer? Are they just interested? Like, I don't know. And luckily enough, my agent looked over it and he's like, yeah, they want to do this. This is great. And from that point I was on the road. And so I didn't want to tell my family over the phone, because that always means one of them's going to be out of the room and then one of them finds out after everybody else. So I sat on it for like 4 days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, until I could get home and tell them all in person. And my boyfriend knew, and I told him, I was like, you can't tell your mom. You can't tell anybody else, because my mom, that'll be the end of me. I won't make it to the big. She'll she'll put me 6 feet under if someone finds out before her. And then when they finally got it, because I told them, and even they didn't catch it. They're like, yeah, okay. I was like, no, guys, like, I know we've been waiting, and I know that you've put me on your back for a lot of years now as I went through the minor league system, but it's real. Like, this is it. This is not a joke. This is happening. And everybody kind of freaked out from that point. So it was already February. We were staring at spring training. I think we were a week away at that point. But, you learn to live by the seat of your pants in this industry.
We don't believe us. We're well aware of that. That's a darn sure. I like the fact that you've already got a whole bunch of Orioles merch. I like that. That's a good sign.
Oh, thank you.
The other thing you mentioned, it's a hybrid. You have the hybrid abilities. You're going to be, it's a hybrid gig. Tell me how much. What did they say about how much play-by-play you're going to get, radio and or TV?
Yeah, so my play-by-play capacity is almost all radio. If I'm television, I'm on sidelines. We've got Gary Thorne and Jim Palmer holding down the TV booth, and they're just legends in their own right. So for that, it is almost a split role. I have, nearly 60, 70 games TV sidelines and 60, 70 radio play-by-play. So
that's really good.
Yeah, it's
That's
astounding.
Really
It blew me away, because that's not at all what I expected to happen. I figured they'd give me a little leash, see how it went.
What'd you figure, 5 or 10 games?
Do what?
You figured 5 or 10 games, something like that?
I maybe 30 at best, but it just goes back to the fact that they really fully bought in on what I do and what I bring to the table. And we get to mix in. We have 19 broadcasters. So we'll be working with different people all the time. I love that facial reaction.
Do you really?
19?
Oh, yes.
That's more than the Yankees, for crying out loud. 19?
Yeah. 19.
So radio,
we can
TV, digital, how's that break down?
So I haven't looked at the numbers now since February, but you've got some who are designated pre and post, and then you have some who, just like me, will float between TV analysis, radio play-by-play, pre and post game. They're kind of a little bit of everywhere. So whereas Geoff Arnold is coming in as the main radio play-by-play guy, and Gary and Jim are kind of your mainstay, TV guys, there's still plenty of room. And I think that's what people don't know, is that there's other places to wiggle around and give content to, especially when you look at having not only the Masson channel, but the Baltimore channel as well. They still operate in tandem, but at the end of the day, separate. And that's that much more content that you can put out to give to people.
Does anybody else of that group proclaim to have snacks in their bag? That's what I want to know.
I don't think so. Geoff makes fun of me a lot for it, because he's always like, what's in the snack bag this time, Newman? Especially being in the minors, because that was how I lived. I pre-packaged and pre-cooked, and I had my little zipper refrigerated bag that went on the bus with me, and that sucker was my life. If I had to take a guess at who would have a snack bag,
Yeah, this is good. See, I like this.
Ben McDonald, but I would go for like Gator Bites, beef jerky,
no doubt,
anything with hot sauce, and probably Kevin Brown, just because I could see him being a little more of the think ahead type, very meticulous in that realm.
And
but
he's quirky. And he's a little quirky.
He's a little quirky. He's so great. And I mean, if we're going to make snack bags for other people, Jim Palmer has to pack pancakes, but I don't know that we'll get him to do that.
Fair enough. What have you been sort of going to school on, or what are some of the things, if you're making time to, I don't know, do work in preparation for the season? You know, we all had this extra time now. So like I'm sitting there going through, scorecards from like 2016 and seeing if there are any notes on guys that I forgot that I want to clip off and go re-ask them about, or, something stupid. But like, you're just trying to figure out ways to get better, or homework that can help you. What are some of the things you're doing?
So I've bought just about every Orioles book I can find, just because the franchise, I know Baltimore, but I don't know Baltimore. And I want to be connected, the little quips that fans have, and the small details, the history, the moments that mean so much to them. So diving into those as much as I can, making notes. And it's funny because, in some of those, there's also those hidden moments about some of the players who are now my broadcast partners.
Yeah.
And picking up on that and understanding their cornerstone and why they mean as much as they do to the team. I've been looking back at some games from last season and just kind of watching my own work. And, I call this here just the workshop stuff that, again, we're not all fans of hearing our own voices, but it's that necessary evil. And then apart from there, getting to know this team. I came in pretty hot and pretty quick. And we were barreling towards the season, and I still hadn't really gotten to know a lot of the guys. I know 3 or 4 from previous minor league and fall league time, but that doesn't really help you if you only know a handful of the team. So digging into their bios and then deep diving, between social media and the internet, what backstories can we find? And let's go ahead and look at their seasons. What were their projections coming into this year? Who were the ones who were likely to be that starter? And then who were the ones who are fighting for that bubble spot? Because when we resume, all of that's still going to be a very real thing that we have to know. And I'm lucky too, because we've still gotten to have content during this time. So I actually created a digital segment of sitting down with one player every week, and we have a cup of coffee and we talk about life. Because, there isn't baseball right now, but I think that's such a unifier, is seeing these athletes that you really, how can I relate to them? I don't live that lifestyle. I don't hit 300. I don't make $5 million. They're at home just like you are right now.
Yep.
So getting to see their reactions about like, my 2-year-old is pulling my hair out every day, or like I tried to learn how to cook and I've burned the kitchen down, and just showing people, they have that chance to connect and understand each other. It's been a really laid back but unique situation to get to know these guys from afar.
Let me ask you this. In terms of now that you're in the big leagues, what are places, people that you're looking forward to meeting and experiencing for the first time around?
Oh, gosh. I've been to a handful of major league parks, but it's different when you get to go and that's your workspace. So there's going to be just about every single park, and it stinks because I look at my agenda now that has every single game we were supposed to have, and I'm like, oh, today I should have been in Toronto. Like, that's cool. So getting to see those from that light is something that I'm really excited about. And that's when I always told people, because they ask, has it sunk in that you're in the big leagues? And I would say, oh, it will on opening day when I'm at Camden Yards and I'm looking across the field at the Yankees. So we're still waiting on that moment. But even with that, I got to sit down and have dinner with Susan Waldman one night in Florida. And that meant the world to me. She wished me a happy birthday last week. And I was like, what planet am I living in that this is normal life now? And I just feel really lucky for that. Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
And just being around for so long, I have gotten to know a lot of other major league broadcasters. So getting to see them for the first time, and we're at the same place, and it's not because my minor league team had an off day and I made the drive up, but having that camaraderie just means a lot. And then, you know, we saw guys like Brooks Robinson, who just had his birthday, and wanting to meet those legends in person, because we didn't get that chance at spring training. And my mom always jokes, because my roots are my roots. So everybody has wagers on what's going to happen the day that I accidentally run into David Ortiz when we're playing the Red Sox, but we'll find out when we get there. It's all of it as a whole is exciting. When you've been living off of hot dogs and, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and buses that have air conditioning 60% of the time, you just want to take all of it in. And that probably means I'm going to gorge on some food that's way oversized and not at all healthy for you at some point. But
there's a lot of good gyms at the hotels. You'll be all right.
You're going to have to send that reminder, be like, go do it.
Well, you got a great future ahead of you, and you got a great group of broadcasters you're going to be working alongside. You mentioned Kevin Brown, Geoff Arnold, Ben McDonald, Gary, Jim. I mean, really, really great group. So we wish you the best. Thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you guys. It's been a blast, and I couldn't look forward to it more.
I probably won't see it till next year, because you're going to be playing All-American League East and West. I'll be out, All-American League East, National League East, and I'll be all in the American League and National League West. But wish you all the best of luck, and we'll probably, we'll no doubt see you sometime next season. All the best day again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Melanie Newman, our guest here on Announcers on Boog. Hey, get some sleep, pal. Make sure you're ready for that next KBO broadcast.
Yeah. Will do. Thanks, buddy.
All right. There we go. For Boog Sciambi, I'm Dave Sims. This has been Announcers On. We'll see you next time.